need the government, we're going to need private sector, but we're also going to need the voice of civil society. But none of that is possible if we do not live in a stable environment, politically and otherwise. And so this is where I want to bring you in, Bragansha, to talk about Angola as a critical voice in mediation processes in that region. Talk to us about the importance of peace and security, sustained peace and security to create employment opportunities on the continent.
Thank you so much for the question. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, my name is Danila Bragança and I am from Angola. So please allow me that in the name of the Angolan youth to congratulate all of the South African people for this 30th year of freedom, 30 years that have allowed your country to successfully follow the path of equality, of respect for one another, and development. I would also like to thank the NYDA for the invitation. Well, education, training, and technology, all of that actually is very important. Is very important naturally, but without a culture of peace, there will not be development. It is the culture of peace that carries the fundamental principles that allow us to live in a society, such as solidarity, such as tolerance, and the respect for one another. The ability to live in diversity and solve our problems through dialogue. So I also would like to thank NYDA for this opportunity because I believe that it's only through dialogue that we can solve our problems peacefully. Angola has been playing a huge role in terms of peace making. In fact, last year, November, Angola held a forum for culture of peace. In fact, this event was aimed to promote cultural exchanges as well as violence prevention and mediation. It is so much part of our agenda that President João Lourenço has recently gained the title of champion for reconciliation and peace in Africa in recognition for his work and his commitment to peace causes in Africa, such as the peace conflict and crisis in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. It is our understanding that the current and future generations have a very important role to play in very important duty to their homeland, to defend, to protect, and to perpetuate the legacy of peace, building a better future, not only for ourselves, but the future generations. So this is what Angola has been doing in terms of peace keeping, and much more is yet to come. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Danila, for painting that picture. And I think with that, we can open up the floor for any questions. I know that we are pressed for time, so I will strictly be only taking 2 questions. There are 2 gentlemen with their hands up. Earlier, I said I like being hosted by women, so I need to be consistent. I would ideally like to take a hand from a lady and a gentleman before we wrap up. Okay, I see over there. That gentleman was the first to have his hand up. I don't know if it's because he's in my view, but we're going to take a question from the gentleman in the navy jacket and then the lady with the black turban over there. Please be as brief as you possibly can, and do mention who you're directing the question to.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Molo Putmati, greetings to you leadership. My name is Luyolo Twisi. I'm a co-founder of SL Africa Sports, one of the sports organizations that is supported by NYDA. We are based in Eastern Cape, Gqeberha. The reason why I'm speaking to you, Putmati, the state is supposed to create a conducive environment But you find that sometimes that it is a state that is a stumbling block and delays the progress of development. The reason why I'm saying this, we had a sports development initiative which we needed assistance from all public works in terms of leasing one of their infrastructures that was an old school that banned years ago. We wanted to assist the government in terms of infrastructural development and also at the same time to develop the community. As you know that there's a high rate of crime in Gqeberha. The minister was there. We are shooting each other every day there. Nonetheless, we approached the public works, the directorate in a local level, that we have this sports development initiative, that we want to start a sports development academy, which we are assisted by the private sector when it comes to financial support, working with also educational institutions. They said to us we must send a proposal of this initiative, which we did. After we sent this proposal, we got a response that this land is no longer available. It is open for tender. So we are facing such things when it comes to development initiatives, that our progress for when it comes to development, it doesn't go through because of such barriers. So how do you, as an upper level structure of public works, you ensure that you will deal with these matters of having gatekeepers? As young people, we have solutions. As the previous speaker said, yeah, we have solutions, but at the same time, our solutions are not being implemented, and that makes us irrelevant to the society. Like young people, they are just speaking and come up with solutions, but they are not implementing. So please, leader, we really need an intervention on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, afternoon. My name is Mashudu. I come from Swaneville, a small developing community in the West Rand, and I am Udinzalo herself sitting here, and I still live in a shack, and I came here not to even listen, and I'm here to listen, but also I'm here to say we are one of those. I am one of those youth that is wanting to have businesses. We are registered. We keep going to all these programs, but with the funding and infrastructure, we can't run our business successfully because we don't have the structures. I come to the community where there's only 2 schools and a community wall. But how we are businesses on paper, but we can't make this employment thing work successfully without the structures. And with the NYDA or any government, they don't fund structures. And how are we supposed to go about doing those things if we say we, as the youth, we need to do something, but we don't have the money and we don't have, the support as well.
Sure. Thank you.
I can't.
Pure, once again, it looks like you have the honor of answering the questions from the floor. There was a question from the gentleman around processes when it comes to getting support to do some youth development work in his community. And of course, the question around infrastructural support for entrepreneurs. Can you please speak to those 2 submissions?
No, thank you.
Sure.
What I can say is that there's a crisis across the entire country as it relates to, let's just put it as government property, from land parcels to physical infrastructure. And this is what is currently in the process of being done right now. I want to draw an example for you about a situation that is also prevalent in the Free State as well, where in the area of the Eastern Free State in Kwako, this used to be a former Bantustan. There's a lot of infrastructure that was built there, particularly around schools. In fact, throughout the whole area, there's about 350 schools in that area alone. That supersedes even the amount of schools that are in the provincial capital of Bloemfontein. and yet it's in a rural area. So when new norms and standards were developed by the Department of Basic Education, most of the schools did not meet those. In other areas, you found that people relocated from your villages to your townships and so forth. Others left to bigger cities. So those schools were left unattended, they're unoccupied, they're being vandalized. So the policy that is being implemented currently by the Department of Public Works says we want to use these buildings, we want to repurpose them. One, socially, for social good. The other one, obviously, is for revenue enhancement. Now, to use it for social infrastructure, there's certain requirements that you have to meet. I think your organization would meet those requirements, except now it's a different province. But in terms of the social, for infrastructure that will be used for, for social benefit, it is your sporting clubs, it is your organizations that support people living with disabilities. We have an example of one organization that came and presented a proposal that offers, NQF level 5, 6, and 7 qualifications. It's an institution, but it specializes in training people, young abilities. Those kinds of things are things that are being considered. As far as your proposal is concerned, it can either fall in other one. If you've got funding, then it should be for commercial reasons, it should be able. But an assessment has to be done with regards to the building on its own, whether you can be able to occupy it and what will need to be done for it to be able to accommodate yourselves and your organization. So I think that is something that you really, really need to take up quite seriously. In fact, the Department of Public Works may be a custodian, but the powers in relation to land and property in a province rest with the premiers. So I would request you to direct your query to the Premier's office in the Eastern Cape. I'm sure you'll get assistance there. Secondly, on the structures by, I think the lady's name is Mashudu. I think the same approach can be taken. Rather approach the office of the Premier, make them aware that these are the schools that you've identified or the structures that you've identified, and you'd like to use them in the following manner. In some instances, you'll find that the structure might belong to the National Department of Public Works, or it might belong to a municipality or the Provincial Department of Public Works. But that determination must be made at that level.
Thank you, Piwe.
Okay.
I think I'm going to get into my last question, and this is a question I'm going to pose to all the panelists. And so you have to answer it in a way where you also give your parting shot and your closing remarks. That's not even the difficult part. You have like a minute to do it each. And so after a minute, your mic is going to be turned off. Yeah. And so my question is around, and I think another speaker mentioned it, the youth bulge. We keep speaking about Africa being one of the most youthful, if not the most youthful continent in the world. But we also, on the other hand, have high rates of young people who are not in education, who are not in training, and who are not employed, which poses a threat not just to our societies and our communities, but to also our democracy. What is it that we need to start doing now to get those young people to become economic participants in the near future? I'm going to start with far left, and then we're going to work our way to Dr. Emma. 1 minute.
Thank you so much. I think one of the key things that we need to start doing firstly is to do the skills audit within our communities. And once we have done with the skills audit, we'll be able to fit in that model of the CDF. And Obit Pio spoke about the RPL programs, which are, I think, it's one of the key things that will really assist us to alleviate unemployment in our communities. Because we've got people that are, they can sew, they can build, but they never went to school for that. But also as a traditional leader, I need to ensure that we create a safe environment for them to be able to come and implement their business idea, which is in line with the CDF, and also support the NDF of that particular province or as the country which would want to look at that. So I want to say as I close to all SMMEs that are here, that I think our country where we are, or as traditional leaders in this country, we are at the level where our doors are open for collaboration. And collaboration in a sense that collaboration, it will be, relevant in what, the needs of that particular community are, and how we can also, build the sustainable model for each and every community that we would want to work with. So I think as a young person, I'm also raising a hand to say, we avail our communities for collaboration. We need those ideas to come so that we can build sustainable economic initiatives within our communities. There's no need to compete. It's just a matter of us coming under one roof and collaborate and ensure that what is the role of the government into this, what is the role of traditional leadership into this, and what is your role as the initiator of the idea. Because we also need to understand that there are policies in terms of how we do things. We cannot haphazardly, approach economic development initiatives in a casual manner. We need to ensure that we've got timelines, we've got targets, and it speaks to what the needs of the communities are. Thank you.
Thank you.
In the main, to briefly summarize everything, I think there's a real need to foster greater linkages between the labor market and the education and training system. Also making sure that the curriculum is aligned to the needs of the labor market, so that young people are also able to find in fields that are viable and that are. Currently, we're looking at renewable energy. There's your AI industry, there's the green economy, and there's many other sectors that are also evolving. So it's quite important that we have a much more focused approach on what the priorities will be in terms of sector by sector. We know that in the formal economy, there's opportunities that are there, but obviously because you're dealing with a unique set of young people that are described as the needs, we need to find other ways of trying to absorb them in that are much more labor intensive. So that would be my input in terms of fostering those greater linkages between the market and your training institutions. And that lastly, let us make youth development everyone's business. At your local level and even at the provincial level, because at a national level, it's quite well streamed, it's quite well funded, but as soon as you go to your provincial and local levels, that's where you find a lot of gaps in implementation of programs.
Sure.
Well, my opinion in regards to this question is that nowadays we live in a world where everybody's on the internet. But at the same time, it's in our continent, we face something that I call the info exclusion, which is we have so many young people, but yet most of our people from Africa or African young people aren't using the internet to their full potential. So I would say that we need to encourage them to promote and to promote their jobs on the internet, but and also educate them, because it's not enough. It's not enough that you promote your job, but you also have to understand that there are rules in the internet world, because some people might confuse and sometimes even commit certain crimes, like talking bad about some people or having some procedure that aren't accordingly. So in my opinion, definitely we need to promote more the participation of young people on the internet, promoting their jobs on the internet, as well as in education towards law and education as well to what is right and what it's not right. Because sometimes they might commit some crimes that they don't even know it's a crime. So the fact that you're doing it on the internet, it doesn't mean that, for example, you can speak bad about other people on the internet. It doesn't mean that you won't still be penalized for what you're doing. So there needs to be rules even in the internet world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Best for last. In 1 minute, I will coin my how do we harness the demographic dividend of Africa with 3 E's. First E will speak to empowerment. We need to empower young people in terms of access to information, put programs that are targeted intervention that speaks to the young people. And the next E speaks to education. When it comes to education, let's also encourage TVET, the vocational training, because we need to also focus on artisans and all the other trades that will lead us to industrialization and higher education as well. The last E is economic and empowerment and employment opportunities. As government, we should really try to encourage all the opportunities that we can provide for the young people to participate in, especially when it comes to procurement. I mean, government is the largest procurement, offers the largest procurement. In Namibia, what we've done, we've now produced what we call codes of good practice, where we are providing preferential treatment to young-owned companies to participate in procurement. So deliberate policies that empower also is to ensure that they participate in the big sectors that we have identified as high growth sectors for us to harness this demographic dividend, for us to turn youth into productive citizens.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much to my panelists for, I think, an eye-opening conversation. I know that we talk about youth development and we talk about creating employment opportunities and opportunities for young people to become economically active, but I do think that we can never have these conversations enough. As long as we have 7 out of 10 young people in this country who are without work, we need to continue having these dialogues until we're able to locate the gaps and everyone is clear about what their role is. I think in the words of Upiwe, youth development has to be everyone's business. So thank you so much for sharing your insights, even though the sound people tried to sabotage us. Thank you so much for being an excellent audience. Before I leave, I do encourage everyone to read that APRM review that everyone keeps talking about. If you want to understand where we are in South Africa on the path to creating those employment opportunities for young people and the work that needs to be done to getting to where we want to be. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dilipo, as well as your esteemed
Thank you.
Panelists. That was just absolutely incredible. I'm so blown away. And I think those 2 questions also coming from the audience were just so powerful. So I do hope that we continue in these conversations. We've come to the end of our formalities. So to close off this remarkable day, please help me welcome the Clerk of the Pan-African Parliament, Her Excellency Lindiwe Khumalo, who became the first woman to assume this position since the establishment in 2004. Ladies and gentlemen, Her Excellency Lindiwe Khumalo.
Ngiyabonga Mzilikazi kaMashobane for those nice words. Your Excellencies, ministers present, the President of the Pan-African Parliament, ambassadors, mayors, the National Youth Agency leadership, their Royal Highnesses that are present. It's a great privilege for the Pan-African Parliament to have received all of you here in the precincts of our Parliament in order to commemorate with the Republic of South Africa its 30 years of democracy. Much has been said over the last few hours about the country's democracy and the role of young people in the struggle for democracy, but also the many acts of bravery and activism that have been etched in the history of this country in their unwavering commitment to democratic ideals. I join everybody else in commemorating these 30 years of democracy. I salute the sons and daughters of this beautiful country and also thank the youth that have traveled from far and wide to be with us here today. The discussions that have been held here today have been very rich, they've been comprehensive and empowering. Many of these issues were important to have been raised here in the Pan-African Parliament because, as the president of the Pan-African Parliament has said, this institution was established as a platform for citizen voices. And the issues and the options that have emerged from this discussion must find their way onto the agenda of this parliament. This parliament brings together 5 members of parliament from each of the African countries. They meet here 4 times a year in order to deliberate on issues that are important for our continent. And I find that in many of the issues that have been raised here today, I take 10 takeaways to make recommendations to the Parliament on issues that could potentially be discussed by our upcoming sessions. And I think this is an important way of ending this discussion, to say that what has been discussed here today doesn't end in this room. It continues to find its way onto the agenda of the many parliamentarians that will be congregating in this very room in 2 or 3 months to come. I'll just summarize, because I have also, in addition to thanking you for your presence, been asked to give some closing remarks. I'd like to just highlight 10 of the key takeaways that I have noted that I hope the Parliament, under the direction of the President, will be discussed at our session. First, from the speech of Honorable Charumbira, the issue about the link between youth and culture, that Africa is our home, and within the context of much of what we see as migration, brain drain from Africa, how can we make the youth of Africa be at the center of Africa's development discourse and conversations? I think that is very, very key. From the discussion of the APRM, again, that question was deepened further to suggest that the voices of youth must find their way into development plans of the different countries. And that is something that we want to sensitize our MPs on, so that they're able to take them back to their national parliaments. From the presentation of Ambassador Nzapa Yeke, the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, the question of the role of the youth in diplomacy, how to convert our young people into young ambassadors for Africa. Minister Pando also emphasizing this point, and particularly in her role as the Minister for International Relations, the voice of young people, deepening the spirit of Pan-Africanism in line with South Africa's foreign policy. And this particularly is a call to action for South African youth who in many ways sometimes are inward looking, to become more outward looking towards the rest of the continent. And I must just pause here to urge young people in South Africa to seek opportunities within the African Union to begin to be more African and more Pan-African in terms of even employment opportunities. From the presentation of Thulani Tsefuta, I took away the view that he generated around why Africa cannot afford not to address the problem of unemployment. Africa has a big demographic dividend, and that must be exploited. That was a strong, powerful point that we take away from this meeting. From Minister Ramokopa, the hour of the youth, she says. What's next? How can the African youth begin to envision the future, a future that is transformative and a future that's empowering? From the first panel, the brilliant young people that gave their different views here, I took away, again, the important thought that in the development of development plans, the youth should be both drivers and beneficiaries, or just not only beneficiaries, but also drivers. From the presentation of Dr. Emma Kantema Gayomas of Namibia, we thank you very much for the Namibian experience that you've shared. The key takeaway that we take to the discussions of the Parliament is the need for a monitoring and tracking and evaluation of the youth initiatives across the continent. From Honorable Lamola's presentation, where he makes a call to action, we take away the fact that there's a very important need for opportunities to be opened for youth to exploit opportunities of intra-Africa trade. And lastly, from the second panel, we take away a very rich discussion by the young people here about how economic development and discussions around this issue should be an issue that draws in private, public, community, and youth, all at the center of it. Having said that, I would like to invite you, when the Youth Caucus of the Pan-African Parliament meets ahead of the session of the plenary of the Pan-African Parliament, to challenge all youth agencies across the continent to consider holding side meetings on the margins of the plenary sittings of this Parliament. I think it would give an excellent opportunity for the youth to feed in directly to the debates, and perhaps under the direction of the President, have an opportunity to address the plenary of Africa's Parliament. As I close, I'd like to acknowledge the following several personalities and organizations that have made this dialogue very successful. I will start with the President of the Pan-African Parliament by hosting this event and offering the facilities of the Parliament for the use of this event. I do apologize for some of the sound challenges that we experienced in the course of the program, but I do wish to assure you that this room is for every one of us. And I hope that you take that message back to your various countries, for those that have traveled here, to be free to use this facility. The President of the Republic of South Africa, through the ministers here, to thank him for the presence of 3 ministers of the Cabinet of the Republic of South Africa, Honorable Pando, Honorable Ramohoba, and Honorable Lamola. To the diplomatic corps, Ambassador of the Central African Republic to South Africa, who's also the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps. We extend the gratitude for him and his colleagues to have made it here today. To the various envoys and heads of mission of international organizations that are here in solidarity with the Republic of South Africa, we thank you also for your presence here. Minister Emma Kantema, and by extension, your President, for gracing this occasion. Our sister organization, the African Peer Review Mechanism, the Chief Executive Officer, Professor Eddie Maloka, who was represented here by Advocate Bashokwa, and the entire staff of the African Peer Review Mechanism. I would like to thank you particularly for having had the foresight to enter into partnership with the National Youth Agency, and for drawing in AU organs into what might have been a national event, but now has become much broader because of the foresight of Professor Maloka. And I wish to thank him for this indeed. The leadership of the National Youth Development Agency that has coordinated and funded largely this activity. We thank you very much for choosing this as your venue. I interacted mostly with the Deputy Executive Board Chairperson, Ms. Karabo Mohale, and I'd like to commend you for the excellent manner in which you facilitated this whole arrangement. I think you demonstrated exceptional leadership, for which I commend you. And for all the people that have made this event a success, first, and I must reciprocate to my baby sister, the MC, our wonderful MC. I think she deserves an applause. She really connected. She really connected all the dots and made it a very seamless discussion, and I really commend you for your exceptional talent. Members of the media, our own media teams, media from across the continent that will carry this message to the continent and across the country. Thank you very much for your excellent work. For the sign language interpreters who are communicating with a marginalized community, I think that it's commendable that we have provided this facility so that this message can be heard by all. For all service providers that have serviced this session, security, protocol, ushers, the caterers, and all the service providers that have rendered services during this meeting, thank you very much. And the staff of the different agencies and institutions that I may not have mentioned, I would like to acknowledge you also. And most importantly, to appreciate every person that is here in the room. You've graced this event, and we thank you for it. We are closely monitoring the very active online engagements that are going on through the hashtags. Can they see us now? Can they hear us now? Brilliant hashtags that I think will continue to reverberate the social media platforms for many years to come. I would now like to just leave the youth of this platform with a quote from Pan-Africanist Frantz Fanon, who says, each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it or betray it. I would like to challenge you to discover your mission, to fulfill it, and never, never, never betray it. Having said that, I just wish to wish you a safe journey home, all of you, and to declare this dialogue closed. God bless Africa. Nkosi sikelela i-Africa. Thank you.
Her Excellency Lindiwe Khumalo Siyabonga Mdungwa. What an incredible day of engagement. Please give yourself a huge round of applause. I'm not going to say much, but to the dignitaries, to our guests, to our partners, to our host as well, thank you so much for a fabulous day. We've now arrived at my favorite part of any program, lunch. All right? So lunch will be served in the lobby, and for all the VIPs, please note that it will be held in the holding rooms. From myself, Noni Kumalo, I wish you a fantastic day further. Ciao.